Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast from still the aforementioned Chase Thomas coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me from Saturday Down South, Maryville, Chicago Bears land, many forget. Actually, there are two Tennessee Vols sports writers in the Maryville area. I just put two and two together on this very program. Ethan Stone and Grant Ramey, both Chicago Bears guys in Maryville.
Holding it down, I guess.
Y'all need to start a club. I don't know. This would be a great club. I'm not a Bears guy, but if they could put one TV on the Falcons game on a Sunday, and maybe one for the Titans, Ryan and myself could partake in a trip over to Maryville for the Chicago Bears Vols sports bar party scene, because this feels like something that you and Grant can get going here, Ethan.
Yeah, I'm all for it. We got to get it started. I've talked to the man like once or twice in my entire life, but we've got the common thing going, the Bears. So I'll talk to anyone.
He wears black a lot too. You're wearing black right now. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of crossover potential here. Has anyone ever seen Ethan Stone and Grant Ramey in the same place?
People are asking.
Also here, Rocky Top Insider Zone, Ryan Schumpert. The other Ryan is what Ethan was calling him last week. It was just like the other Ryan. I was like, I thought he still gets it. I mean, he's really first Ryan because Sylvia came in after the fact, but Ethan calling him the other Ryan.
They're both Ryan S. I can't, how do I differentiate otherwise?
I think Walmart Ryan is what. I think Walmart Ryan is what most people are calling me. Sylvia's the big time. Sylvia's the big shot. He's the big time Ryan S. But I'm just playing second fiddle.
There you go. Well, we have some Tennessee Vols to talk about here on this program. We had I don't know if y'all would agree, but Ethan, I think this was the most fun Tennessee basketball game of the year. I think this, what we saw in College Station on Saturday, another comeback, another big time Zakai second half performance, my favorite Zakai shot in a very long time, and just full on, just very it felt like a just really definitive, just a really fun game. It was just a decisive, we're better than you and we're closing this out, and it was the most we're a 1 seed type feel that I have seen from the Tennessee basketball team this season. It was the most 1 seed-esque win that I have seen in conference play, because the way they bounced back with Florida without Zakai was a big time game, obviously, and I would understand if people threw that as the most impressive conference win thus far, with Tennessee now at 9-5 in conference play. But I think it's at A&M, because now if you can just take care of business at home against Alabama, I think they're going to be a 1 seed as long as they don't falter anymore down the stretch. But it didn't look great for the first half, and they were playing with fire there with Zakai with 2 fouls, and you're just like, I don't know, are they going to be able to hold on and actually really steal this in College Station? And they did. And not only did they do it, they just did it definitively with really, there wasn't that whole back and forth of a lot of free throws. They just closed it out. Zakai called game, and that was that. Yeah.
I think I'll disagree and agree. I'll say it was fun in retrospect. While the game was going on, I feel like I can speak for everybody. I was pretty horrified. I mean, if Wade Taylor...
Horrified? Gainey was making threes all over the second half. My wife was in the other room are you okay?
One till the under 4 timeout.
Look.
What do you mean all over the second half?
Hold on, were they both under 4 minutes?
Yes.
I thought the first one was 6 to 8, somewhere around there. Okay. Was that low?
First one I think was 3:36. That'd be an insane pull if I had the exact time, but I think
that
that's
is
right.
Just outrageous. That is some real Tennessee Vols basketball sicko behavior from Schumpert, knowing the actual number there, if that's what it is.
3:33. So it's off by 3 seconds.
Man. 3 seconds off. I can't even remember who the A&M player was who had the cylinder violation, but if that shot goes in, and then if Wade Taylor hits his free throws, it's a 1-possession game. Heading into Zakai's fantastic shot, which I will agree with you, that was one of my favorite shots. It's funny you say that, Chase. It was one of my favorite shots of the season, because I watched it about 35 times when the game was over. It blows my mind every single time how quickly Zakai gets from point A to point B. and how unbelievably unprepared I think it was Wade Taylor was to defend him. He had no idea where he was going. And then he says he called it. It's got everything. And the final 10 minutes, despite the fact that I feel like a little more nerve-ridden than you, Chase, I will say, looking back on it, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I can see the argument for that Florida game also being, the defining win, I guess, of SEC play so far. I would agree with you and say it's this Texas A&M one, just simply because it's on the road, and just simply because we're heading into the back half. We're less than a week away from March at this point. So the way this Texas A&M team was playing, the way just the style they have, the bully ball, Tennessee knew how to beat them. And I think I said it with Sylvia on Wednesday. If they hit their threes, they're going to win that game. And they hit their threes. I mean, Chaz Lanier probably had his best outing of the season from range. I think he went 8 of 13. He was just completely ridiculous in the first half. I think that's so much fun that Chaz just every once in a while hits 5 threes out of 5 threes in a 10-minute span, and there's just nothing the opposing team can do about it. But I'd agree with you, Chase. It's a fun basketball team. I think all the worries about this team and saying that the consistency isn't quite there, I'm not sure I believe that. I think they're moving in the right direction, moving into the most important month of the season.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of times I said down the stretch where, like I said, my wife's in the other room and I'm like, bang, like Mike Bring, where just Gainey again. The guy, it was great. It was a lot of fun because we haven't had many of those for Tennessee basketball. It's just it was a very different type of close with Tennessee hitting big time 3 after big time 3, and obviously in the first half you talked about even like Chaz just going berserk, but it was also kind of speaking to what we talked about, Brian, which was, I think Chaz is just set up for these teams that if Tennessee gets matched up with bad perimeter teams, defensive teams, there's potential for Tennessee to really go off and Chaz to feast. And you kind of saw that with what A&M was throwing at him. It's just if they adjusted him, I think Buzz talked about it after the game where they did change some stuff up in the second half to kind of limit him in terms of what he was able to do. But Chaz took advantage in that first half, and it was critical. And I think that's what we're going to see more of down the stretch, especially come tourney time, is Chaz is going to get a lot better looks and better opportunities here with who I think will be on their schedule come tournament time. And I think folks who've been kind of frustrated with Chaz, I think will end up with a positive taste in their mouth when it comes to Chaz down the stretch here. Because, he's been awesome, and I think he's going to be really good in the tournament with where he's at and his confidence level shooting.
I think there's a number of things that probably lead to that. Like what you're saying with the opponents, I think is probably part of that. I think, one, he's just getting better. He's learning how to move without the ball more and knowing his spots and knowing when to shoot. I think all of that he's getting better with, just as
he dunked.
Which he's dunked now 2 of the last 3 games.
I love it.
Yeah, the help defense not coming helps a lot on the dunk. But yeah, no, all that's true. And then I think the third thing is, and this is a Rick Barnes theory or something he's talked about multiple times, that he thinks the NCAA tournament gets officiated differently, and you're just not allowed to play as physical. And he talks about it all the time, how, and there's a little bit of irony here, given Tennessee is certainly not innocent of doing this either. But he talks about how much Chaz gets grabbed coming off screens and how he has to tuck in his jersey 6 times a game. The officials get tired of telling him to tuck it in because he needs to tuck it in because it's getting pulled out. So, and he thinks that changes a little bit with the officiating. They call it a little bit tighter in the tournament. So all those things, I think, lead to reasons to be optimistic. And yeah, he was so huge because, really outside of him, Tennessee played really poorly in the first half, at least offensively. It was another bad first half for Tennessee and another bad start. But Chaz getting as hot as he did basically single-handedly gave them the lead at halftime. Tennessee made 3 shots from the field in the first 10 minutes, and they were all 3 Chaz Lanier threes. So that shows how much he was keeping Tennessee afloat. And that was important because Tennessee, again, it was a typical game that I thought Tennessee as a team played a lot better in the second half. They didn't really make many shots the first 10 minutes of the second half. But even though they played better, if it weren't for where they were at halftime, they wouldn't have won that game, because I don't think they would have been able to come back from down 10 on the road they've done and against a handful of good teams at home. I don't think they were going to be able to do it on the road, which is why Chaz having them where they were at halftime is just so important.
Ethan, are you surprised that that Tennessee is still on the outside looking in behind Florida? I mean, Duke and Auburn are obvious, but with who they're behind in terms of Alabama, Florida, and Tennessee being that next one in, does it surprise you that Florida is getting more of a benefit of the doubt right now than Tennessee after that win on Saturday, and Tennessee beating them in their last game without Zakai?
Yeah, my gut reaction to that was like Sunday, whenever the projections first started coming out, my gut reaction was that's crazy. Looking into it more, I think it's fair. Florida has the better win. They beat Auburn. They split against Tennessee. They've lost less games. Sometimes it's just as simple as that. When it's as close as it is, I'm fine with Florida. Alabama is actually the one that I think is a little more contentious. I think I could still give it to the Crimson Tide. They lost to Missouri, they lost to Auburn, and they're facing their toughest part of the schedule right now. And going into the next couple weeks, I'd have to look it up. 1 second. I'm going to do it while I'm talking here. They have to play
Florida, Auburn, Tennessee, Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I mean, that's a tough way to end the regular season. Not to mention, remember, you had Auburn, Missouri, and Kentucky before that. So it's as tough of an end to the season as you can get. I think Alabama is going to drop at least one or two, and then Tennessee will probably be ahead of them. Of course, if March 1st goes the way Tennessee is wanting it to go. So Florida, no, not really. I'm not particularly surprised. I think their resume is slightly better than Tennessee's right now, even though Tennessee has the more recent win. I think Tennessee, Alabama right now is really a toss-up. You can argue one way or another. I think Alabama's quad 2 numbers are a little better than Tennessee's right now. Quad number 1 is very similar. I don't have the numbers right there next to me. But it's a toss-up. Me personally, I've seen Tennessee play more. I think they're a more complete team, and they get to play Alabama at home in 5 days. So they'll be able to prove it on the court. If Tennessee wins that, obviously they'll be that last 1 seed. I'd agree with you, Chase. If Tennessee wins against Alabama, they win out. They win 1 or 2 games in the SEC tournament. They'll probably be a pretty good lock for a 1 seed.
I don't like the whole just we'll see what happens in the tournament, the actual conference tournament. Like if Tennessee beats Alabama and they finish out, they beat LSU tomorrow night, beat Alabama, and then who am I blanking on? Who's the final one?
Ole Miss, the hardest game left on the schedule. Who you're acting like it's a given that they're going to win?
Given, they're beating they're beating poor man's Rick Barnes' team. That's what's going to happen. They're beating the poor man's version of Tennessee against Ole Miss.
I will say Ryan's absolutely right. I completely overlooked Ole Miss as well. Going to Ole Miss, that's going to be tough as well. If you win all the rest of them, and then you beat Alabama. I think
is that a tough atmosphere though? I feel like Ole Miss is not.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I'm not really worried about that crowd. And I mean, Tennessee is they've won their last 2 against Nate Oates. So I think they'll be in good shape. I mean, if they beat Alabama, but they lose to Ole Miss, do y'all think they ultimately still get a 1 seed?
No.
So they got to win out.
They better go win the whole thing in Nashville if they're going to get a 1 seed.
They'd need help.
But see, that goes the whole thing. Is do we believe that would help and they'll actually get the benefit of the doubt if they win the conference tournament?
Maybe not. I mean, typically I'd say no. I think this year it's a little bit easier because it's SEC teams. It's not like you're going to jump a Big Ten team and then you got to change the whole bracket, in theory. Now I think you can kind of plug and play these SEC teams a little bit easier where they don't have to rewrite the whole bracket on Sunday morning. So I am with you, Chase. I'm still a little bit skeptical that will matter. But if it's like a true tiebreaker, which I mean, Tennessee and Alabama's resume has a chance to be basically right about the same. I think it could matter. And one thing I think we're completely overlooking is Houston's right involved in this. I have a little bit of skepticism that the committee is going to want to put 3 SEC teams onto one line, and Houston is right in the thick of this thing. If Houston, who at this very moment is playing Texas Tech on the road, if they win tonight, I think Houston's going to be a 1 seed. And Tennessee's going to have to beat out both Florida and Alabama to get it. Because Houston's resume is very, very similar. They're going to win the Big 12, the second best conference in the country by a number of games, and still have about, I think, 3 quad 1 opportunities, including tonight, left in the regular season in the Big 12. I think they're way, way, way more involved in this 1 seed conversation than anyone is saying at this point.
Well, Florida's got at Georgia in the Mike White Bowl tomorrow night. And then they got A&M on Saturday at prime time at 8:30. They go to Alabama.
In Gainesville?
Yes.
Okay.
And then they go to Alabama, which may be coming off a loss to Tennessee on Saturday. And then Ole Miss, Ryan's favorite team, Ole Miss on Saturday to wrap up the year. So, I mean, I think there's, even if Houston steals one of those 1 seeds, the way Florida's schedule unfolds and Alabama's down the stretch, those are brutal stretches that if Tennessee can just win out, I mean, I think the conference tournament shouldn't matter. I think if Tennessee wins out, as long as they don't get bounced early, like in their first game or whatever, they don't have a Mississippi State situation where that's the last visual you have is Tennessee getting obliterated in really excruciating fashion by an inferior team, then I just feel like they're a 1 seed, but they have to take care of business down the stretch, and like you said. And I think they're going to get some help, is I guess the broader point here, is I think Alabama and Florida are in a much more arduous position than Tennessee is down the stretch.
I would say Florida and Houston have a much better chance at the 1 seed than Alabama. I would be shocked myself with the way Alabama ends the season. I'd be shocked if they're still a 1 seed. That would be and they'd have to earn it, obviously. I mean, if they win the rest of them, they're going to be a 1 seed. But like they got 4 games against top 15 opponents. I just don't see it. I don't see it.
It's hard not to see Alabama going 2-2 down the stretch, in my opinion. And that's where I think Tennessee and Alabama, their resumes are pretty similar. The quad 2 is the big difference because all of Tennessee's teams they play in the ACC are absolutely worthless. Though I will say Virginia 103 in the net right now. If they can get up into the top 100, that would become a quad 2 game for Tennessee. So that's kind of the one difference, but quad 1 is very similar. Wins and losses very similar. I think that kind of will work itself out, especially if Tennessee wins that game. Florida's the one I'm more fascinated by because they have a lot less quad 1 games, but I think they're going to have fewer losses. So how exactly does the committee look at that? I guess is, to me, that feels more up in the air. How Tennessee and Florida would get graded if Florida ends this thing with 1 or 2 fewer losses in Tennessee, which I think is still very possible.
And the head-to-head is so weird with those two because Tennessee got steamrolled with Zakai on the road, and then Florida gets embarrassed with Tennessee super low on numbers. They don't have their best player, and they take Florida to hell and beat them in Knoxville. So I'm just like, how do you...
It's kind of a wash.
Yeah, like I just don't know how you... They're just so close.
There's no tiebreaker.
Yeah.
You know? Like Tennessee and Alabama, I think you're going to end up with like 1 or maybe 2 different... I think it'll be 2 different number of quad 1 games. So it's like comparing the quad 1 resumes are going to be very, very similar. They'll have played 1 time. Florida, it's just so different. I'm not sure what the committee is going to prioritize, I guess, is the right way of putting it.
Switching gears here. Is there a sneaky stat that stuck out to you, Ryan or Ethan, in this game?
From a why Tennessee won the game standpoint, it's the fact that second chance points, 10 for Texas A&M, 8 for Tennessee. To me, I think that's a huge reason why they won. That they were basically able to break even there. A&M still got about their normal clip. I think it was like 39% of offensive rebound attempts they grabbed, which is only slightly under their average. So Tennessee didn't do just like a fantastic job there. But they did a really good job of limiting second chance opportunities. And I do feel like a couple of the times they did score on second chance opportunities, it was like a third or fourth chance opportunity. So, the numbers get a little staggered there, I guess. So I think that was a big reason why Tennessee was able to win. And I thought Jemai Mateshak did just a really, really good job of battling on the glass in this game, especially in the last 10 minutes, basically, when he was playing the 4 spot. He offensively struggled and had some frustrating moments, but 2 big tip ins, and I thought was really good defensively and really brought the intensity Tennessee needed on the defensive glass.
I like it. All right, I'm going to be Isaiah Collier here, which is for the Utah Jazz fans who are all the way up in on the assist numbers that he's putting up. So that's just for Ethan, because Ryan has no idea that Isaiah Collier is out here throwing dimes for the Utah Jazz right now.
Crazy underrated, Isaiah Collier.
Oh, he's not. Okay. The ball sailed out of bounds. He wasn't ready. It's I'm setting you up, Ethan. I thought you had a stat for us here.
Oh, yes, I do. I guess the ball did go out of bounds. It's all the way over there at this point.
We're driving this metaphor into the absolute ground. Just the absolute ground.
It's gone.
I still don't know what's going on.
Isaiah Collier, he played at USC. Now he plays for the Jazz. He fell in the draft. He was a sneaky steal late in the first round, I think. And
he was number one recruit in the country, I think.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
He's playing well. He was 1 seed, and now he went 29. Anyway, back to Tennessee basketball. My Jordan Gainey stat is that Tennessee is really, really, really good when Jordan Gainey is doing literally anything. I'm not sure if I've said this on the podcast before. It just blows my mind every time I see it. Tennessee's 14-0 when Jordan Gainey scores 10 points. They're 8-5 when he scores less than that. Like that should tell you pretty much all you need to. Like Gainey doing anything offensively helps this team a ton. And I mean, you notice it in their best wins. I think I've said this a few times about Gainey before. Obviously, he has 14 points in this last one. He catches fire at the end, which, after I think he started 0 for 3, 0 for 4 from 3. And then he hits 2 big ones at the end of the game when A&M and Tennessee are kind of trading punches there.
Some felt like it happened around the 8-minute mark for the first one, but continue.
It's fun. It's fun watching Jordan Gainey be really good at basketball. I've said it 1,000 times on this podcast, and I will continue to say it. He is so underrated, in my opinion. He's got the big game against Illinois. That's all Jordan Gainey. This one I wouldn't say is all Jordan Gainey. I'd say Chaz Lanier gets probably the brunt, gets the MVP for this one. But Tennessee doesn't win this game without Jordan Gainey either. And I think he's going to be just a massive piece come March. I think it feels like he's going to have like a 20, 25-point game in the tournament when everyone else is missing stuff, and he'll be the one to lift us over the top. That's just my 2 cents. I love what I'm seeing from him. Even when he's kind of in a bit of a slump from 3. Just imagine it when he starts hitting it at the rate that we know that he can.
I've never been more happy for a guy than Gainey hitting those 2 threes. Like that's why I lost my voice in the living room, because it's just he's doing everything else well. We talk about in the group chat where I'm like, what's so frustrating is like he does everything else well. Like he's doing well in 2s. He drives and draws fouls. He's active with his hands. He gets a couple steals a game. He does everything else. It's just the 3s have just not fallen. He's a good shooter. And for those 2 shots to fall, I felt so. That was probably my favorite 2 moments outside of the Zakai thing. It's just that Jordan was actually got to see these shots fall, because I can't imagine how much that was driving him nuts, because he is such a good shooter and he's doing everything else, and those just haven't fallen.
That's so accurate, which speaks to how much better he's gotten. Like last year, it felt like if he didn't make shots, he could not help Tennessee. And this year, even in the shooting slump, like obviously you want more from him, and he's not playing his best, but he was still doing a lot of good stuff. And it was such shooting slump, hell that he was in essentially, where it's like the shots that he has the in and out, brutal in and out in the Vanderbilt game the week before. He made the 3 right after the shot clock expired.
Yeah.
Kind of just caught it and had to heave it in the first half. And it's like, dude, this guy cannot get anything to go his way. So it was awesome to see those shots go in. One thing to Chase to help to prop you up a little bit. His driving layup was about 6.5 minutes left. So maybe that felt like a big bucket too. And Ethan, even to just go further to your point, you said yours was 10 points. If it's just 9 points plus, it's 2 more wins for Tennessee. In the 2 games he scored 9 points this year. So I think it's like 16-0 when he scores 9 points, and 6-5 when he doesn't. So it's kind of crazy that it's just like get Gainey to 9, get Chaz Lanier to 18, Jemai Meshack make a 3. Tennessee hit 30% of their threes. They've lost 1 game this year when they've made 30% of their threes or better. There's a lot of trends that have indicated Tennessee having success, and they all on the surface feel very doable every time out, which I guess makes sense. They only lost 5 games all season.
I love it. Final hoops thing. Do you feel better or worse about Tennessee Bama based on what we saw from Bama this past week and Tennessee this past week with the big game on Saturday?
I have a boring answer. Yeah, I have a boring answer for this, and it's that I feel pretty much exactly the same. Alabama is just such a weird. They're very similar, honestly, to Kentucky, except they don't hit their threes as well. They go on runs like crazy. They don't play defense. It really just depends on if Tennessee's offense shows up. That like if Tennessee can put the ball in the bucket, even not half, but similar to what they have done in the past couple of weeks, I think they win this game, especially considering it's at home. But like I think there's multiple avenues either way. It's hard for me to pick a specific trend and say this is where Tennessee has the advantage, this is where Alabama has the advantage. It just seems like, are the shots going to go in? If the shots go in, I think you can beat Alabama. If the shots aren't going to go in, they'll outrace you.
Yeah, I feel pretty good, and I think it's going to be an electric atmosphere on Saturday. I think this is going to be a hornet's nest because I think there's just a lot of buzz right now. And there's a lot of belief coming off that game, and I mean, obviously, don't drop this game at LSU on Tuesday night. That would make sure that does not happen against a desperate and a very bad LSU team on Tuesday, and can't take that off. So still close that out, but. I feel pretty good about Saturday against Tennessee. It's kind of scares me that all three of us are pretty confident in Tennessee against Alabama on Saturday, but we shall see.
One thing I think that is fairly interesting is Alabama also has actually played really well on the road, except for this past game against Mizzou. They've played really, really well on the road. They went to North Carolina, and I understand they're not very good this year. They beat North Carolina at the Dean Dome. They beat Texas A&M in College Station. They beat Kentucky at Rupp. I mean, that's a really, really impressive resume. And while Tennessee has a tough home atmosphere, and while the Vols play exceptional at home, like it's so tough to find a trend. Like I just said, it's so tough to find a trend with this Alabama team. I don't know. I think Tennessee has the advantage. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, they beat Mississippi State on the road. Like 2 or 3 SEC losses are at home. One of the teams that played them the hardest on the road this year was North Dakota. They went out there to play for Grant Nelson, and North Dakota gave him a heck of a game. Eagle Staff, is that his name? Yeah, is that his name, Ethan? Eagle Staff, is that the dude for North Dakota's name?
Yeah,
55 with the sleeves.
Trayson
Trey
or
Eagle
something like that.
Trayson, I think it's Trayson.
He's got a crazy, and all respect to Trayson Eagle Staff, he's got a crazy white boy North Dakota name. Like it's like he's an NCAA tournament guy if they can make the tournament. It's amazing. He's the next dude.
Trayson Eagle Staff. He was getting buckets on Bama.
Yeah.
He's got the loose arm sleeves. Grant Ramey would be ashamed of me because he's told me about this guy a couple times. Some guy that played at West Virginia in like the early 2000s that had diabolical.
Oh,
Gansey, yes, he's got the Gansey undershirt on, and he was just hitting shots everywhere.
And in
all guys want to do is talk about Kevin Pittsnogle and Gansey, Mike Gansey.
If someone thinks Ryan is
exaggerating, guys many times,
he's definitely not exaggerating. Eagle Staff, I don't even remember this. I remember the game was fantastic. He had 40 points against Alabama in this game. It was a season high,
and he was hitting
8 of 18.
It was Dalton Connect-esque.
It was crazy.
I don't even think that's being dramatic. It was Dalton Connect-esque.
It really wasn't. It was a great game. I mean, I think Alabama won by like 5 or so. It was a great game.
Yeah, they pulled away late, but it was back and forth for the first 35 minutes or so.
I love it. Switching gears here. Vols football depth chart series continues on here going into 2025. Do you feel better or worse about the running back room in 2025, Ryan Schumpert?
Worse. I mean, you lose the SEC Player of the Year. It's hard not to. I think Tennessee will be fine. I'm not overly concerned about the running backs room. I like what they did in going out and getting Star Thomas. That gives them 3 guys I think you have to feel pretty good about right away. And I think that was important due to some of the injury concerns with Deshaun Bishop and to a lesser extent Peyton Lewis and probably more as a whole, just running backs a position where guys get injured. So having Thomas, I feel really good about that room, but there's no Dylan Sampson. There's no Jalen Wright. I think it's one of those guys could take the next step, but I think it's missing that top line guy. But Chase, as you said many times, I'll have to see Tennessee struggle to run the football before I'm overly worried about it with its offense.
I think there's a case, Ethan, that this room is better as a whole than what you saw in 24. I think in 24 they were kind of thin. And you saw like that level. I mean, what Dylan Sampson had to do was not, I think, ideal for what Tennessee wanted to do because it put a lot on Dylan Sampson. Dylan Sampson had to play healthy. And and he had to do a whole heck of a lot. But I also just, the best versions of Tennessee is a rotation, and Tennessee did not have the depth to have a true rotation last season. And I think this year you're going to have Deshaun Bishop, who will be in year 3 in the system. He's pretty comfortable. He's shown flashes. Ethan can't speak on him because he's inherently biased, being a Carnes guy. Beeves forever. But you have Deshaun Bishop in year 3. You have Peyton Lewis in year 2, who's your highest rated RB you've brought in to this point in the Heupel era. And he showed flashes. I think he's going to be a good player. You brought in Star Thomas, as Ryan talked about. He's been extremely productive everywhere he's been, whether it's New Mexico State or Duke last year. He's the perfect Jabari Small for this room as a stopgap this year. He's like 38 years old. And then you also have DeJuan Morris, who I think can really play if he's your 4th guy. And then Justin Baker, who plays at a powerhouse, obviously in Georgia at Buford. That's 5 guys that you have right there. I just feel good about this room. Like, I just think Tennessee's got options. So if Deshaun Bishop gets banged up, you have other guys around, as Ryan laughs because I'm talking up another Georgia high school recruit here. But what I'm saying is, I think it's fair to say the running back room in 25 is deeper than what Tennessee had in 2024. Now, will they have obviously the same kind of special season that Sampson had with 22 touchdowns, 1,500 yards? No. But if you were to tell me that Tennessee's running back depth and the overall talent in that room was better, and Tennessee was able to rotate and use a lot more guys and keep a lot more guys fresh down the stretch, I would believe that in 25. I think it's going to be a better room as a whole.
I could listen to the argument that through numbers and through more consistency, and like you just said, you mentioned 3 guys that can at the very least rush for 500 yards in this coming season. I'm not sure that there's anyone that can be DSamp level. That's my issue. I'm not necessarily positive they could be more talented. I don't think that they're going to crash and burn. It's like what Ryan said. I have to see it to believe it, that Tennessee is going to have a poor rushing offense. And the guys that have been there, Lewis had a good game against Ohio State. Of course, it was during a blowout, but he had a good game against Ohio State. Deshaun Bishop has shown that he can run against SEC competition. And then Star Thomas he played really well. I believe he had 800 yards last year at Duke. I don't necessarily know if that's going to translate to, what Dylan Sampson was able to do. In fact, I almost guarantee it won't. I'm not sure they're going to have that explosiveness, but I could definitely agree with you, Chase, that the consistency and the strength in numbers is absolutely there. I think depth is going to be a strength in that room. I don't necessarily say I'd subscribe to your first word, which was better. I think you said better at first.
I think it's better. I mean, if you tell me that those 3 average 5.5 yards a carry collectively and account for 1,600 to 1,700 yards on the ground, I would buy that right now.
I mean, my problem with that is...
Did Tennessee's running backs not do that last year, though?
I'm just saying, as a rotation, but it's also, you're going to have more guys. Like, what I'm saying is, we're looking at this as a room in general. I think this room is stronger and bigger and has more talent than they had a year ago.
I think there's a major miscalculation on why Dylan Sampson got so many carries last year from Chase. You're acting like they had nobody behind them. They had good players behind them who got opportunities, and those guys will be better next year. Don't get me wrong. I agree with that. But it wasn't that those guys weren't capable. It was that Dylan Sampson was so good and Tennessee's offense was so inconsistent that they had to go to their bread and butter so much. That's my opinion.
I don't know if they would have done that, because you had Deshaun Bishop, who was banged up so much last year, and he's been banged up. Obviously missed all of his first year, and then he was off and on last year. Peyton Lewis is a true freshman. They just got small, and they got very thin in that room in a hurry. I think they're both can be true, that they kind of had to, by circumstance, rely on Dylan Sampson a lot, but also go with Dylan Sampson because he was so good in the second half that it was a little bit different. So you did feel more comfortable riding him versus any other running back you've had like that in the previous 3 years. But I don't know. My gut is they want to do the rotation. They want to do one full drive with Peyton Lewis, one full drive with Dylan Sampson, one full drive with Deshaun Bishop, and keep that room fresh throughout the game. So in the second half, those guys are fresh, and these opposing defenses are like, oh God, here we go. Here's Peyton Lewis, who's got like 6 carries for 43 yards, and is going to lower his shoulder and just drive the point home again. I don't know. I just think that is more of what Tennessee, the best version of Heupel's offense and what Tennessee is when they have 3 to 4 guys they can evenly rotate.
I think we see that more. I think that's what they want. Yeah, I don't know that makes it the best version. I don't think that makes it better than what it was last year. I mean,
their rushing offense is better in 23.
Tennessee's running backs ran for 2,200 yards last year.
Right, but I'm saying they average better yards per carry in 23 than they did in 24. I mean, Jalen Wright was averaging like 7.5 yards per attempt.
Well, let me tell you, the 2023 Tennessee running back room is a whole lot better than the 2025 Tennessee running back room.
I don't know.
There's no doubt about that.
I don't know.
Chase, you've lost me. I'm
sorry,
Chase.
I'm a big Peyton Lewis guy, and I think Deshaun Bishop's really good. And if you were to tell me Dwan Morris bursts onto the scene as like the other guy and Star Thomas is like your Jabari Small or a better version of Jabari, I can absolutely see this room being better.
There's not enough room for 4 guys getting carries consistently.
I think it's going to happen. I think Dwan Morris is going to play.
We sat here, Chase, 2 years ago on this podcast, and you complained about how Jalen Wright was not getting enough carries and how 3 guys was too many to rotate.
Well, he's the best running back in the Heupel era, and I've said that. I've been very clear. Jalen Wright. But I also, now looking back...
That's fine. I disagree with that take. That's fine. Don't have that take and then sit here and tell me they're going to rotate carries for 4 guys consistently, because that's just ridiculous.
We also know probably... I mean, Deshaun Bishop's just unfortunately like a big question mark. Like, I hope he stays healthy. He's a good player, but to this point, he hasn't in his first 2 years. So... I don't know.
I feel like that's another reason that kind of goes against your point, though, because like there's no
Jalen toss that point out.
There's no guaranteed Jalen Wright or Dylan Sampson in this lineup. There's just not. Deshaun Bishop was injured for half of last year. Peyton Lewis had 350 yards. Like, who's the guy that's going to break through and be like, someone has to be the 800, 900 yard guy.
I think Peyton Lewis is that. I think Peyton Lewis gets 800, 900 yards.
It's doable. I think it's possible. Yeah. I don't necessarily say I'd subscribe to it being better than 24 and 23 right now, but I think it's going to be good. I don't think it's going to fall off a cliff by any means.
We shall see. Final thing here. Let's dive into some baseball. Ryan Schumpert. So who helped and hurt their standing the most from Tennessee's sweep? Now number 1, depending on which poll you're looking at. Coach's poll has Tennessee back in the 1 spot, but what did you see from this weekend where you're like, this was a good stuff from this person, and this was kind of like, I don't know about this going into their first big weekend in Houston?
I think Reese Chapman has solidified himself, and I just like how he's done it. Consistency is the big word with him. I think I said that in the preseason on this podcast. I know I wrote it, and he's been good, but it's not like he's been good with a couple really splashy moments. He's just been steady, and that's what he was this weekend. I do think he hit a home run, or maybe that was in the midweek. I think he hit a home run this weekend, but for the most part...
I thought he hit it Sunday, didn't he? Am I misremembering that? I thought he hit one yesterday.
No, I don't think it was on Sunday.
Then it had to be Saturday, because it wasn't Friday.
I think it must have been Tuesday, and he hit one last weekend too. He hit one on Sunday of the Hofstra series, but that speaks to it all the more. He was just all the more consistent, hitting the ball hard, multiple parts of the ballpark. So I like what he did. I mean, it was his job to lose in right field. But due to that inconsistency, you wanted to see him come out and start fast, and he did that. And certainly it's difficult not to mention Levi Clark, who had as the biggest moment of the early season with a go-ahead grand slam in the 8th inning and a pinch hit opportunity. He comes in and pinch hits the next game and hits a home run again. So he looks really, really good. Those 2 guys, I think, in the lineup helped themselves the most. And on the mound, I think Marcus Phillips has solidified himself, at least for now, as the Saturday guy. Tony Vitello basically said as much, that, they're not tinkering with anything. He's the guy on Saturday for the time being. And, I don't know, this guy had a good outing. I think it was more when he was used, it was telling. But Austin Hundley, he was the first guy out of the pen on Sunday, which meant he was the 3rd guy out of the bullpen all weekend for Tennessee, because Tanner Franklin came in and got him to the finish line on Friday, and Nate Snead did on Saturday. So to see Hundley be that guy that they went to immediately with a runner on base, not a clean inning, and had him pitch 2 innings on Sunday over Thomas Crabtree, over a handful of other guys. Breedlove pitched, but he came in before him, ahead of a Braden Krenzel. Like, to me, that was pretty telling of where he sits right now in the right-handed rotation. And It'd probably be him and Phillips, the returning pitchers. I don't think anybody has helped himself or raised their stock more over the offseason than those two guys.
And it's clear Sunday is very much up in the air. Like, we have no idea what they're going to do on Sunday, right? Like, Arvidsson did not lock that down. He had a kind of up and down week, and it's just hard to. I don't know. He's still on the outside looking into me for Sunday, and you don't go Snead here. Maybe it's Coons on Sunday. Maybe it's Loy, who we haven't seen much of.
Feels like it's one of those two.
Yeah. Like,
But at this point.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just saying, like, I feel like it is interesting that Sunday is just so much up in the air. Like, I have no idea what they're going to do about Sunday right now.
Yeah, no, completely. Because I on one hand, I'm like, yeah, I feel like it's Coons or Loy. But on the other hand, it's like, well, they got 2 weeks until SEC play starts. Neither of them have pitched yet.
Is it AJ Russell?
Are they going to get worked up to being, starter, be able to throw 75 pitches the first weekend of SEC play, let alone having done enough of it in really what would essentially be an opener role the next 2 weekends to be like, yeah, he's our guy. So, yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, Russell's obviously, like you said, he's the X factor in all this. I do think
he's just looming, right? Like, you're expecting to see him this weekend, right? Should Vol fans expect to see AJ Russell on the mound this weekend?
I am not expecting to see AJ Russell this weekend. No, I mean, maybe he will pitch, but I would be surprised if he's pitching this weekend. Arvidsson, I think, was better on Sunday than it maybe feels like, because he started on Tuesday. He did not pitch very well on Tuesday. Yeah. Sunday, he gives up the home run, the first at bat of the game. After that, he retired the next 6 guys. Not that it was all perfect, and I do agree. It doesn't feel like he's a Sunday guy long term, but I feel like the taste that was left in my mouth for Arvidsson on Sunday was a little bit worse than how he actually pitched.
I also just kind of wonder what happens. I mean, I'm curious. Barga's what? Is he at 200 right now? Is he, because he had a tough weekend at the plate, and I kind of wonder. He's played everywhere, right? Like, how many positions has he already played to start the year? Left field. I feel like he's been in left, right, first, and DH. Did he catch one too?
He's catched. He's caught. I think it's first, third, catcher, left field, DH. I don't think he's played in the right field.
I don't know what happens there. Because you mentioned, like, Levi Clark's a story, like, and this was something I talked about, and I said to Ryan, and Ryan was just like, I don't know, and it was just, I don't know, Jim, and I was like, you can't keep these freshmen away, and I'm like, Tony's got a weird dynamic that he's never had to deal with before, which is, these are the best freshmen, this is the best freshman class he's ever had in the lineup, and whether it's Manny Marin, Levi Clark, Chris Newstrom, Jay Abernathy, like, there's just dudes who, I mean, look, like you've talked about, and I think this is a fair point. Like, we have no idea what they're going to, the SEC schedule is a different animal. And it's one thing to do this against Stanford, who might be a tournament team, like a regional team, like they're good, but it's still a different animal come SEC play. If these freshmen are going to be able to withstand that kind of pressure and just the difference, like the uptick in talent, like it's just a whole lot more talent that they're going to be up against conference play. But I'm curious because, I mean, Stone Lawless too, like he's mashing. Like Cannon Peebles is had a good week so far, so he's getting it, but he can't really take any days off because he's got a whole lot of talent behind him pushing him. So I don't know, like I don't know how this all works, but I mean the freshmen are just going to have to keep playing, and I feel like Abernathy in particular, because he has a skill set no one else at Tennessee has right now. I mean, he's got to be in the lineup every day. Like, I just don't know how you can't have him. I understand having him come in late to pinch run and then play later, whatever. But man, he's just different. He's fun, and he's scary on the base path in a way that Tennessee's just not had. And with this offense being as good as it is, like he's just going to be a run scoring machine for Tennessee. And I love your point about Reese, because I mean, him starting out in the 9-hole was kind of surprising, I think, for all of us to start the year. And it didn't go the wrong way, which is what I was worried about. Is like, like if he loses confidence in the 9-hole, like this could get dicey for him. And he's answered the bell, and he had a grand slam. I looked it up. It was Friday that he hit the home run against Stanford, and he's playing well. Like he's settled in. And I talked about it this year, and I think I wrote about it. Is like, I don't think there's a way Tennessee gets to where they want to go if Reese is not really good, because I think they really need Reese to be an everyday solid contributor. And the final one here, Hunter Hensley, is fine at third. Like we were wondering about if he was going to be able to be if he was going to be able to hold on to that 3-hole spot, because I mean it's a big spot for Hunter. Like this is different than anything else he's experienced at Tennessee to this point in the lineup. And if he can hold on to that and be really solid in 3-hole and hit 300 plus, that's good for Tennessee, because they tried him at the top of the order last year, it didn't go well, and then he was really, really good in the middle of the lineup. I mean, I kind of wonder if this continues, but I hope it does, because it evens stuff out for Tennessee and makes life easier for Vitello and his lineups if Hunter can hold down the 3-hole, right?
Yeah, I agree. To me, it is still a question.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Like there's just not really any other obvious candidate. Like Cannon would probably be the other guy, because he would give you some of the flexibility with the right left stuff.
Levi
being a switch hitter. Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot to put on a true freshman in SEC play. And Stone would be the same type of way you'd say that. I think Asuna, if he does get eligible, strikeout rate's a little too high to want him to be there. He's got the pop in the bat. So, yeah, I think Inslee, from just the studying nature, is probably who you want to see. And I think with Bargo, the thing that he fits in is just what I said. Like, I think, because you're right, you 100% have to keep playing these freshmen and keep giving these freshman opportunities. But I do think that's where, when Bargo's versatility will help him, is that when, to me, inevitably, some of these guys have some struggles in SEC play, which doesn't mean they're just never going to play. But, Tennessee's looking to give some other guys chances. Bargo, with that versatility, almost wherever these guys could play, if they are in the starting lineup as an everyday guy and struggle, Bargo would feasibly get opportunities there, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, it doesn't feel like it's trending towards him being an everyday guy at one spot. But I do think he'll continue to get opportunities even as they get into SEC play.
Final thing, we'll get out of here because Ethan's just like, I'm not there yet, folks. It's basketball season. Going into conference play, based on what you've seen thus far, Ryan, we're going to do this round robin, and we'll do this again next week after the Houston series. Starting left fielder, first SEC game now, based on what you've seen thus far. Let's rapid fire here.
Right-handed pitcher Jay Abernathy, left-handed pitcher Chris Newstrom.
Okay. Center field.
Inslee.
Right field.
Chapman.
Third base.
Fisher.
Shortstop.
Curley.
Second base.
Keelan.
First base.
Asuna.
Ooh, okay. So we think he's going to be back by conference play. Catcher.
Cannon.
DH.
Levi.
For both? Doesn't matter left or righty?
Yeah, I think so.
There you go. See? That was fun. If Ozuna is not eligible for conference play, who do you have there?
Fisher at first, Mania at third, which I think this was a question on the rundown. Who would get hurt the most by Asuna getting eligible? Mania would be my answer. Yeah.
I love it. Ethan Stone, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at Saturday Down South this week?
Yeah, a good deal. With March coming up, we're full locked into college basketball at the moment, and then we'll move on to softball and baseball after that. I've got a couple pieces actually coming out this week after a good while not writing too many columns. So I'll be getting one of those. I'll be doing something on some of the SEC's best tournament runs across the SEC throughout the history. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We'll have full coverage on SDS.
I love it. Ryan Schumpert, what about you and the team over at RockyTopInsider.com this week?
Yeah, everything chugs right along. Tennessee baseball. Jack Foster will be in, I don't know, it's not Minute Maid Field anymore. I don't know what Minute Maid Ballpark. I don't know what they call their baseball park in Houston anymore. But he will be there for Tennessee baseball.
We're calling it Minute Maid Park. We're brand loyalty.
Brand loyalty, Minute Maid Ballpark. He'll be there. I'll have some on Friday and Sunday, some thoughts and some coverage remotely. But in Tennessee basketball stuff, big game against Alabama. And then obviously, I typically hate the 9 p.m. starts local time because I'm not a psychopath. But it is kind of nice because we have Tennessee baseball midweek. And we've had it a handful of times the past few years where it's like 4:30 midweek baseball, 7 o'clock first or tip off for Tennessee basketball, and trying to do both is awful. So I like that it's 9 for that. It'll help me do the Lions of North Alabama coming to town to Lindsey Nelson Stadium on Tuesday. Coverage of that. And then the Tigers of Louisiana State University for the basketball team that night. So we'll have full coverage of all that and everything else going on in the Tennessee sports world.
There you go. Ethan Stone, Ryan Schumpert, always a pleasure, and I'll talk to y'all next week.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.